Szanowni Państwo, nie zapomniałam Państwa obecności.
Ladies and gentlemen, I did not forget your presence here, but there are some requirements posed by the technologies. We hurry with the next presentation. Professor Jerzy Wojciechowski decided to accept our invitation. He is the president of the Polish Medical Society, a great doctor, also excellent composer and pianist. We will listen to the compositions by Professor during the concert later this evening. Professor, the ongoing generations of doctors learn about the moral requirements and ethics, about the linkage between the profession and morality. But are there ready available questions that Hippocratic Oath gives rise to? Distinguished magnificences, excellences, Professor Krawczyk, who was in such a hurry, I thank you for staying for my presentation. Please do not regard this presentation of mine as an act of repentance. I accept with reverence and deep gratitude the medical degree which has been bestowed upon me, and with full understanding of duties are connected with I solemnly pledge and declare. When I was in Kos, I could see a group of young medics 2,500 years ago wearing white Greek tunics, gathering together next to the master. The men, because in those times only men could be medics, according to the suggestions from the physician, were clad in clean clothes, wear decent robes, and use nice-smelling, though not too offensive ointments. I swear by Apollo, physician Asclepius, and Hygieia and Panacea, and all the gods and goddesses. Hippocrates, born 460 on the island of Kos and who died 90 years later in Texel, was a doctor, teacher, and author of various writings, including Corpus Hippocraticum, a collection of 59 treatises divided into 72 volumes. Amongst the works, the Ode is the most famous text. It opens with an invocation to gods and provides a prohibition against using deadly substances on the patients, against abortion, against disclosing information about the patient while he is under treatment. If I fulfill this oath, I do not violate it. May it be granted to me to enjoy life and art, being honored with the fame among all men for all time to come. Even these words were pronounced 2,500 years ago. They hold true today. The Pythagorean sect forbade bloodshed because in ancient times blood was considered to be the residue of the soul. This Hippocratic oath has been taken solemnly for thousands of years. I swear to maintain the utmost respect for health and human life. The fact that this text is so much up to date is connected with the respect for human life, prohibition of abortion, and the commitment to act purely and selflessly, which filled with relief the hearts of the sick in all epochs and places on earth. The Church replaced the pagan gods by references to God the Father, and the teachings of the greatest doctor, Jesus Christ, have been confirming the undeniable truth that health and human life are of the utmost significance for 2,000 years now. Over 20 centuries, Christianity has prescribed to discern a sick person, a picture of God, and a brother who should be loved as much as we do ourselves. John Paul II also emphasized the requirement to consider a whole person holistically, and not to be perceived from the perspective of sick organ, but the perception of the soil. I swear, according to best of my knowledge, to counteract suffering, prevent diseases, and so on, for the good of my patients. Quick changes, rapid changes in the 20th century pose challenges for a specialist. Is the Hippocratic Oath still up to date in the contemporary medical science? Can it follow the various fields, biochemistry, genetics, cytology, immunology, synthesis of drugs, bioethics, which is interested to many doctors. But today we are confronted with the situations which are very difficult to answer in the practice. Medical practice poses new questions every day, and answers must be found in every doctor's mind, conscience, and experience. The new diagnostic techniques, new therapies, new medicaments generations give rise to questions whether based on the genetic research that are right to suggest chromosomal therapies, cloning tissues. Are there any limits that may in future possibly stop the development of transplantology, whereas the division between offering relief to sick and the willingness to prolong human existence at all costs? If the society, the doctor's duty to make society realize obvious facts connected to the needs of field of national health policy. Problem of shortage of finances. How about Jehovah's Witnesses? I swear that may come to my knowledge in the exercise of my possession I will keep secret and will never reveal. Is it permissible to increase the economic status of families by dictating performance of abortions, which takes place in China? I swear to maintain secrecy all what I learn in my line of duty, of my profession. The data transmitted through the internet for consultations, will there be a requirement of confidentiality imposed on the technology specialists, doctors, and computer technicians? I will maintain by all the means in my power the honor and the noble traditions. These genius theoreticians, without the contact with the sick, is he not in the permanent conflict where the old and the one's conscience? The medical university entrance exams facilitate the admissions of brilliant scientific minds which will fail to make contact with the sick. 100 years ago, Nussbaum wrote, "The whole suffering humankind cries out for help and redemption, and does not demand science, but philosophical truth, not the richness of news and cognitions, but the ability to offer assistance, the art of treatment." And Heliodor Święcicki, for 100 years ago, said that medicine is no doubt a science, but the fulfillment of a medical profession, taking care of the sick, has always been an art. Indeed, medical science is an art. You can formulate rules and regulations, but it's really difficult to squeeze the art into paragraphs. What should the ideal doctor be like? A scientist who browses through the news, or a patient Samaritan, brilliant diagnostician, or a member of monastic congregation charity service committed to the sick. Questions like this have been asked since the beginning of medicine. Lucius Seneca wrote that quick time flies on weak wings, and the speedy fate does not offer guarantee to anyone, but medicine cannot exist without a guarantee. We need to be aware of the fact that everything is performed according to the best knowledge, doctor's experience, and in keeping with the ethics and conscience. Paweł Walewski wrote that doctors are what everybody can see, modest and conceited, rich and poor, kind and brusque. Doctors are like the whole society, even though the whole society would like them to be better than that. What exactly? According to the Department of Educational Studies 10 years ago of the University of Poznań, only 30% of the sick had met an ideal doctor. On the other hand, the criteria for making a good doctor in the Dr. Oj Boli competition provide that doctors should be caring, kind, warm, spending most of the time with the sick, and also showing signs of professionalism. It is noteworthy that professionalism came fourth in that opinion poll. We should also quote Helena Kowalewska of Żywiec, who writes what the Doctor of the Year should be. We should follow John Paul II, which measure should be applied to measure a man. A man must be measured with the heart. There cannot be a better acknowledgement of a doctor's work. Bolesław Górnicki also pays attention to the role of doctor's heart. So-called supererogational acts, values that cannot be achieved otherwise than by devotion, heroism, renunciations, extending beyond the framework of patient's rights, are acts of timeless, noble intentions founded upon the sacrifice of one's heart. The Hippocratic Oath is taken by a mature person, by a graduate of long-lasting, difficult studies, by a person who has already experienced professional responsibility, suffering that, the necessity to make a quick decision. However, a good doctor's attitude should be forged much earlier. Above all, they should be the values experienced at one's own home, and families adhering to high moral standards. Also, grammar school plays an important role in here. It is unthinkable that an 8-year-old candidate for medical studies, when he got caught smoking, he said that he was a cigarette addict. Where did he learn that? So it would be beneficial if the doctors to be should sign a written statement that they will never smoke tobacco. Even though there is no such reference in the Hippocratic Oath, then Diderot said that the best doctor is he who I cannot find, and Voltaire was of the opinion that the medical art consists in the entertaining the patients while the nature itself heals the disease. We know that doctor serves as an army officer on the front line. The more learned the doctor, the more experienced, the better the result of the treatment. It's not no more the contemporary medicine that Canetti wrote. A truly elegant doctor thinks up a new disease for each of his patients. Today, doctors are required to have a good knowledge of the computer, Benedictine patience, constant renunciations as far as his personal life is concerned, absolute charisma in his service, and of course, experience. Homerus wrote that one experienced doctor is worth more than 100 warriors. Although at the beginning of the 19th century, General Kutuzov said quite disapprovingly, medics and all other scum will go at the back. Unfortunately, Kutuzov's opinion has survived to this day and has been shared by some Polish members of the parliament and politicians. Is there in Poland a majority of good doctors committed to their patients, or a majority of doctors who are constantly on the run and tending to their own problems? Paweł Walewski, author, the columnist in one of the magazines, divides Polish medics into trainees, doctors of the emergency, occupational physicians, district doctors, and so on. Although Lipiński claims a specialist is an expert on one disease, and in other times there is a great shortage of general practitioners. I think that this division into two groups is too narrow. Like the whole society, the medical profession is much more varied. I think it is worthwhile to mention some of the most outstanding types of the medical profession. Medicus desperatus, the desperate doctor, can not find himself in the realities of free market economy, longing for times when someone upstairs thought about everything. A desperate doctor longs for the time where the referrals for various laboratory treatments are written out largo manner because they have service for free. The dexterous doctor is able to find himself in the new free market realities. Is the opposite of the submissive medicus desperatus. A sublime variety of it is medicus economicus, doctor economist, great manager. He can see to his medical practice in a well-equipped private surgery. Is very versed in the complexities of the tax revenue system. He made access to many medical services really common. Fortunately, a very rare variety of the well-managing doctor is the voracious doctor. 3 years after starting his practice, he cannot sleep because his superior earns a better car. He is reluctant to do overtime because he should be busy working in his partnership practice or substituting for someone for decent money, as he puts it. His motto is a quote from Talmud: "A doctor who takes nothing is worth nothing." And do not get a treatment from a doctor for free. Medicus rapax is not ashamed to ask how much or what do I get out of it. Fortunately, as I mentioned earlier, this variety of a doctor is as rare as an okapi, but the latter being more pleasant to look at. Medicus formica laboris, laborious and doctor, is very laborious, often takes an extra work. This type of doctor highly values place of work for a good name of his dispensary clinic and gives up his personal rest, never asks why and what for. He thinks that a sense of duty and honest work are the most important. The teaching doctor is endowed with educational pedagogical abilities. He keeps up to date with medical literature. As according to saying by Kitard, the doctor stops learning only on his deathbed. Without his assistance, progress in the activity of medical universities would be impossible. The bookworm doctor is a specific variety of the teaching doctor. The willingness to be in possession of the latest news or to extend his theoretical knowledge obscures the real sense of medicine. Medicus traditional doctor, unwilling to take advantage of new medical techniques. He says that no ephemeric technologies can replace genuine experience. He is a very good diagnostician and therapist most of the time. The technical doctor loves all modern diagnostic techniques. He willingly refers the sick to various treatments: immunology, scintigraphy, angiography, magnetic resonance. He has a good knowledge of very sophisticated tests. Is reluctant to give diagnosis without full complementary treatments. Professor Lubelskiej warns that if doctors with a passion for technological skills fail to make these complete with the fading old-fashioned art of medicine, the patients will get them replaced by magicians. The doctor-politician existed in all times too, but this type of doctor is frequently met today, not only in the Polish Parliament, but also in other societies. There are many doctors doing politics. Is nothing unusual. Stanisław Sejdas mentioned surnames, about 40 Polish doctors, politicians before the war. We have now the Prime Minister, who is Dr. Rudolf Virchow, a member of Parliament in Prussia, claimed that medicine is equal to politics. For Dr. Politician, medicine often is of secondary importance. He would give up medicine in favor of politics. Medicus publicus, the doctor altruist, obsessed doctor, gives vent to his energy by participating in activities pro publico bono. He takes charity organizations, conferences, acting, and takes active part in social scientific associations. We owe to these doctors that really European standards are getting grip in certain villages and so on. A grand doctor.
He's an example to follow by students and fellow doctors. In this category, there are a lot of cavaliers of the Order of Gloria Medicinae, because the Medicus Magnus really is a genuine pride of the medical profession. His motto is, life is a committed service to people. It is the greatest never-ending respect towards health and human life. It is a conscientious exercise of the art of medicine, maintaining the honor of the medical profession as well as creating everlasting values for the sake of medical doctors. Medicus Magnus continues the noblest traditions of the great predecessors from Hippocrates until today's teachers. The above typology of doctors is just a presentation of some of the most characteristic types. That division, all of the 140,000 Polish doctors out of 3,500,000 medics all over the world take the Hippocratic Oath. Each of them pledged to work preferably according to the best of their knowledge and experience, and to follow their ethical code. What makes young doctors who apparently start their medical careers from the same place, the medical university, very often differ in their later medical life. They differ not only in terms of state of their individual knowledge, but also in terms of summum bonum, that is the higher and highest values. Those values are, among others, the utmost respect for health, human life, honesty, commitment, kindness, sensitivity, patience, the willingness to serve people with dedication, respect towards human suffering, ensuring that the best quality of medical service is provided, seeing a brother in the other man. Those values are not directly contained in the words of the oath. They are not part of ethical codes or dictates of laws. They are dictated by human conscience. This is the only conductor of those values. They find their place not within the framework of knowledge, but within axiological values, which play a decisive role in determining a man's or a doctor's value. These values decide who is a true doctor, having a vocation for the medical profession. Kolath meant that, saying that medicine can be learned, but you must be born a doctor. Bethune added, doctors heal not only by means of medicine. As already Hippocrates came to the conclusion that there are many who are doctors by title, but there are few who are doctors by conduct. Unfortunately, among the many criteria for a good doctor, higher values are often disregarded. A Latin statement says, conscientia mille testes, conscience is 1,000 witnesses. Górnicki puts it in a modern way. Having a conscience means having a unique sense of moral competence, which entitles us to make a decision of primary importance for life or human health. For 2,500 years, doctors have taken the Hippocratic Oath. For centuries, it has been brought up to date and then suited to changing conditions caused by progress in medicine. This great developments in science made it possible to develop surgery by introducing anesthesia, then antiseptics, and the beginnings of vaccination thanks to pastors or radiography. This development was really big in the 20th century, that triggered of great progress. I could witness myself the development of biochemistry, genetics, immunology, cytology, from Fleming, the era of antibiotic therapy, Kolb's artificial kidney, fiber optic cables, scintigraphy, cardiac catheterization, ultrasonography, computer tomography. The above-mentioned techniques have fully opened the human body to the doctor's eyes, but also for the doctor's heart. Looking back at the great medical developments and progress, well, we can state that the doctor's conscience doesn't follow and propagating of the highest values, ethics and the doctor's heart, the morality, and working in accordance with the universal principles of the Decalogue and the heart. There is no general prescription for making an ideal doctor. At the turn of the third millennium, it may be stated that the Hippocratic Oath is still valid in the medical profession in accordance with the latest knowledge, the above-mentioned values. It is still valid, and Biegański's statement that the true part of the practice is connected with the developments of science. The ethical part flows more from the feeling than from the thought. The need to combine the thought and the heart was also highlighted by Rafał Czerwiakowski a century ago, who said, "A surgeon should try to form his heart and manners, which are both as much necessary for the process as his knowledge. Therefore, a need arises for his heart filled with the love of people. Then, as Seneca used to say, people will pay the doctor for his knowledge, for his heart, they will be indebted to him." The best of knowledge, decent working conditions, and just a heart filled with love of people. I wish myself and other doctors. Being a doctor, performing both the profession and the art of medical treatment together with a vocation for helping others, only our knowledge can be solved. The heart cannot. However, it can be a gift. Then, according to an old Hindu maxim, if you cannot become a king, become a doctor. The art of medical treatment combined with the gift of the heart will become a truly royal gift. It can be presented by every doctor, even the most badly paid one, since taking the Hippocratic Oath for 12 months a year, 7 days a week, at every hour. Because you ever become a doctor the moment you get married to medicine until the end of your life. Thank you for your attention.
Bardzo dziękujemy, panie profesorze.
Thank you, Mr. Professor.
Medycyny można się nauczyć, lekarzem trzeba się
medicine can be learned, but you have to be born into becoming a doctor, into being a doctor.
Panie profesorze, jeszcze raz bardzo
Professor,
dziękujemy za przyjęcie
thank you very much for accepting our invitation and this exceptional lecture.
Szanowni państwo, kolejnym
Ladies and gentlemen, another lecturer is Professor Jan Daczek, member of the Ethics Committee of the Slovak Episcopal, member of the Ethical Committee in the Ministry of Health of the Republic of Slovakia. He will try to answer a very difficult question, the role of medicine and moral theology, the solutions that can put human dignity at risk and can lead to dehumanization of human health.
Vaša Excelencia, vážené dámy, vážení páni, dziękuję bardzo pani profesorke Starosławskiej i wszystkim jej współpracownikom za excelentnú organizáciu toho kongresu i za moje prizvanie na ten kongres.
I shall thank you, the organizers, for inviting me to this Congress. From the place when I was born in eastern Slovakia to Dukla, there is only a distance 180 kilometers. So this is why I revere St. John of Dukla. I perceive him my neighbor. So this is what makes me very sympathetical with this Congress. As you can feel, my Polish is not perfect, so may I continue in Italian there.
Le radici del processo della disumanizzazione e della depersonalizzazione nella medicina.
The sources of dehumanization and the personalization in modern medicine and society can be discovered in various factors dating back to the time of the Renaissance. One can discern the challenges that have led to the responses we observe today. According to some thinkers, three of these factors can be identified as: first, a progressive desacralization of the human body, from the view full of respect and admiration for the human body as a sacred one, passes to the cognition and scientific view where the human body becomes mainly an object of study and of anatomical knowledge, of experimental research and submission. Secondly, an increasing invasion of technology that aims, we already talked about it, and this growing intervention, technological intervention, aims at a more precise diagnosis and resulting effective therapy. We are well aware that those advanced technological procedures should lead to a reliable diagnosis, but a physician often perceived his patient as an object to be subjected to such procedures. The third factor is structuralization or nationalization of healthcare, which obviously is an expression of the state's interest in its citizens' health, and obviously contributed to positive results at the general level. But on the other hand, the state's bureaucratic mechanism entered quite often lack proper financial resources focused at the treatment of the sick. My today's lecture will deal with the influence of these two impacts, and I will try to describe in short the characteristic features of such features as postmodernism, transhumanism, cybernetic organisms, and I will try to show possible applications talking about cybernetic organisms in the field of medicine. Transhumanism and posthumanism are perceived as new cultural and philosophical movements ready to accept changes in the human nature. In this way, Homo sapiens might gradually become Homo cyber sapiens, or a post-human being, losing the characteristics of the human being. Like in the past, also today, medicine is called to protect the health and life of citizens, but for a variety of motives it is also urged to work in the opposite direction and become more and more the medicine of desires, like in the field of abortion or euthanasia, or aided suicide. Medical professionals are required to assist in such events, and this concept of transhumanism and posthumanism occurs. In view of these challenges and cyborgization of the society, how is it possible for traditional medicine and Catholic moral theology to remain in dialogue with the transhumanist and post-humanist tendencies? How can we evaluate the possibilities of human enhancement, the so-called human enhancement? What would be the ways to promote respect and defend the dignity, inviolability, and sacredness, or sanctity of every human life in those new socio-cultural contexts? And in this way, gradually, we move to outlining postmodernism, as we are well aware, in the second half of the 20th century. In the 1980s, some terms began to appear with the prefix post. They were used broadly, like postmodern, postmodernity, postmodernism, post-humanism, post-industrialism, post-civilization, post-citizenship, post-contemporary, and so on. There are lots of posts coming into the... So that was some fashionable current. Most of them were not accepted, but some of them were, like postmodernity, transhumanism, posthumanism, were accepted, or we are in the process of having them accepted. There are many positions with respect to postmodernisms and many tendencies suggesting, offering certain definitions, but here we would like to present a descriptive definition by St. John Paul II in the encyclical letter Fides et Ratio. Our age has been termed by some thinkers the age of postmodernity. The term designates the emergence of a complex of new factors that, widespread and powerful as they are, have shown themselves to produce important and lasting changes. The term was first used with reference to aesthetics, social and technological phenomena. Later it was transported into the field of philosophy, but it has retained a somewhat ambiguous character, both because judgment on what is called postmodern is sometimes positive and sometimes negative, and because there is as yet no consensus on the delicate question of the demarcation of the different historical periods. Some scholars think that the year 1968, they see it as the beginning of this new era, post-era. But what is more important, as it seems, is an exhortation by John Paul II, who observed, "One thing, however, is certain: the currents of thought which claim to be postmodern merit appropriate attention." According to some of them, and that was an inspiration to me and to many others, who try and have tried to deal with postmodernism and try to give some answers. Later John Paul II said, according to them, claimed that the time of certainties is irrevocably past, it is gone, and the human being must now learn to live in a horizon of total absence of meaning, where everything is provisional and ephemeral. In their destructive critique of every certitude, certain authors have failed to make crucial distinctions and have called into question the certitudes of faith. End of the quote. Just to summarize these in a very general way, it is sufficient to mention only some main characteristics of post-modernity: distrust in man and his thought, predominance of aesthetic rationality, narcissist freedom, rejection of the past, distrust in the future, fear, openness to pseudo-religiousness, especially to New Age, tolerance, difference, relativism, nihilism, possessive and anarchic individualism that considers man as the absolute reality and actualization of Nietzsche's Übermensch. As a result, three concepts, characteristics of every culture, God, the world, and man, are perceived as weakened, diluted. Modernity, however, considered these concepts as strong. What does it mean? God is weak, absent, or dead. He can be neither one nor universal savior. He has been replaced with a diffuse divinity that can be found in New Age. The world in this vision, according to this vision, was not created by God, and therefore it has neither meaning nor a goal nor value. It is understood just as a depository of objects that can be used and discarded, used as long as we need them. And these objects that we can find in the world are subjected to the will of this Übermensch, who through science can not only discover the world and these objects, but also utilize this world. This world is, of course, uncertain. The future in such a world is uncertain. Man does not consider it his homeland. This postmodern man considers others only as individuals, not as persons. A human being is entirely autonomous, rejects virtues, and his happiness is based entirely on pleasure. He feels not bound by the law, but merely by a contract, as it was already said before by other speakers. If a contract is favorable to both parties, we exercise it, otherwise we just dump it. Of course, this vision is susceptible to manipulation and all kinds of injustice, discrimination from whom? Those who are stronger, discrimination of every kind towards the poor and the sick. Now we will move on to transhumanism. This is the current of thought that calls for replacing Homo sapiens by higher level, technologically higher entities. These are rather new concepts, but the ideas are not that new. They had their roots in the Renaissance thought, which offers a reductionist view on the human life. That foundation was linked to skepticism and postmodern relativisms. And in this perspective, you can see utopian replacement of God and there is a wish of prolonging life and immortality for man.
Questo è veramente senso unico nello sviluppo dell'umanità, dell'uomo.
Actually, in the human development, this direction, this one direction, is a synthesis of prosthetics that can replace various things. According to the Swedish philosopher Bostrom, transhumanism is the study of means, humanistic means that employ various instruments, leading to making us post-human. Post-humanity is one of the most developed moments that we are trying to reach if we manage to improve our capacities. The same author considers death as a great problem, but this is the one to be solved by means of technology, that is through extending life, which represents the first step in the process of self-transformation of the human being. Therefore, death does not need to be approached from the existential point of view, but only treating it in a technical way. Transhumanism does not accept human nature as a constant, sacred reality worth of respect and protection from artificial changes. For these very reasons, it is justified to undertake initiatives that aim to modify nature, especially human nature, expressing human pride, playing God. In other words, transhumanism accepts the actualization of Nietzsche's Übermensch, of technological Superman, who will be capable of almost everything or everything. The adherents of transhumanism, proponents of transhumanism, are ready to use various means, like improving the functions of the human being, nanotechnology, cybernetic organisms, neurophysiological manipulations, computer simulations, pharmacological upgrading, etc. Some already speak of H+ anthropology, a different anthropology that doesn't take God into consideration and says that only the human being can create and replace man created by God. Posthumanism is understood as a philosophical and cultural orientation open not only to the reflection on cybernetic organisms, but also able to manufacture them. Posthumanism crystallized in the context of various avant-garde movements and groups of thinkers. The complexity of this movement leads to various difficulties in studying it, in particular in proposing one shared definition. Of course, you cannot define the exact date of the birth of posthumanism. According to Neil Badminton, one of the first scholars dealing with posthumanism, 1982 was the date related to the beginning of this movement. Posthumanism is a movement that springs and describes, presents the posthuman condition, which is characterized by close links between culture and technology, cybernetic mechanism, post-human man trusts more technology than God and thinks that technology can offer some kind of immortality, technological immortality that would protect him against certain manifestations of weakness. What was said before could be to that could be added 4 typical premises of posthumanism. Information models are more important than corporal existence. There's no immaterial soul. The human body is only a prosthetic that can be used, manipulated, or substituted. Post-human beings will be substituted, replaced. There will be a new entity, a cybernetic entity. So you will have no Homo sapiens anymore. The human being is able to communicate with intelligent machines, and there are no essential differences between a computer simulation and bodily experience, between a biological organism and cybernetic mechanism. Obviously, the question could be asked. We could ask a question, a very important one. If a man takes his reality into his hands, will he be willing to remain in the realm of this horizontal realm? What ends will it lead to? Cyborgs, cybernetic organisms, were introduced in the 1960s by research related to travels beyond the Earth atmosphere to other planets. And a very simple definition was a cyborg is an organized structure, system, working as an integrated homeostatic system unconsciously. In the last decades, we've seen big development, progress of technology in various areas, especially in neuroscience. An increasing number, new interactions are predicted between living organisms and cybernetic elements, especially to repair or improve, enhance abilities of application in medicine. Applications in medicine are increasing. So let us show them in general. Sensory systems like cochlear implants, artificial visions, brain implants,
le membra robotiche, I sistemi di controllo mentale, I sistemi esterni.
Also robotic body parts capable of interaction with the central nervous system of mental control of external systems, neuroprosthesis, and so on and so forth, ocular prosthesis, excuse me. So we observe today that the demarcation line between the cyborg and the human being is becoming increasingly vague. A cyborg is a man and machine at the same time. It is a human being that has been artificially, technologically strengthened. The cyborg is not born, but made, manufactured, developed by technologists. This is why we can say that it represents a new species that some propose to call Homo cyber sapiens. Well, after that presentation of this very complex reality, what is the position medicine could propose. And by this we mean the medicine geared towards the good of the patient. Cyber-organic technology can on one hand help the man to face different diseases and make their lives easier. On the other hand, it may lead to manipulation and exploitation of individuals, group, especially the poor, or the whole humankind. Indeed, the time is pressing, so I'll be very concise. I will shorten my presentation greatly.
Medicina del enhancement, naturalmente
medical enhancement could radically change the mission of the medicine, because it's no more the medical personnel enters into relation with the patient, but instead there is a relation between a doctor and a client, where the doctor fulfills the wishes of the client, and the most prominent place is occupied by a human being in the medical world. But this would mean the transformation towards the wishful thinking medicine. How could we evaluate technological proposals geared towards humanization and personalization of the sick, and the balance between risk and knowledge can help us gain knowledge on whether we are able to act differently, taking into account the equilibrium between opportunities, threats, and possibilities, capabilities, as required in transplantology, or protection against exploitation. Now, as we start replacing various body parts, we shall start asking questions where it starts, or when it starts, when it goes, and where it ends. The operators, surgeons, and Christian medical personnel have a very clear example set by Jesus Christ, who was the supreme doctor, and fulfilling the mission should involve ideal approach. The future of medicine will neither be easy nor swift or light, but there will be an ever-increasing pressure involving doctors on doing what the culture of death demands. The obligation to protect the sanctity of human life will be more and more difficult to meet. But until the end of our lives, we should fight for the value of human life, which we should revere. What the moral theology, Catholic theology, tells us, there Jesus Christ is presented as an ideal human being, which was created by the image of the Lord, and we should respect the human body, because Jesus Christ had that body too. And the greatness of man is manifested by Jesus Christ, who was a perfect man, a new Adam. After resurrection, Jesus had also a human body, a different one, but yet the same, but the human body that Thomas and others could touch, to see that the resurrected Christ also has the human body. Transhumanism and posthumanism show a great crisis in the value of man, a man which guides his own evolution, is confronted with a great deal of risk, because this is how you can get to the point of auto-destruction and shedding any kind of dignity. Man, a human being, is in the center of medicine, which is geared towards the human body, traditional medicine. So this is why we must not authorize any activities that deny dignity to man or other creatures. Human nature was created and offered to the man, and through death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, it was also repaid. Since Jesus Christ had also human nature, we consider that the highest level of the human nature is Jesus Christ, and this is why we should respect the human nature rather than try to destroy it or transform it in an unnecessary way, replacing human nature, which is a anti-human vision, ephemeral vision, a vision that is unacceptable. On the other hand, it is quite correct to seek new solutions and proceed with various ways of diagnosis and treatment to prevent diseases and to heal them. We can draw inspiration from Edmund Pellegrino, according to whom the doctors are obligated to put up borders or constrain their activities in the name of medicine. The doctor should know when to say no. This is an invitation to all of us who are involved in medicine to stand up against the trends which actually are contrary to these to the human value, not to follow dehumanization, depersonalization. This is a call or invitation to all the medical personnel, including doctors, Catholics, Christians, and all people of goodwill. As doctors, Christians, Catholics, we are not alone and will never be alone. We have colleagues whom achieved the highest degree of recognition, such as St. John and several others. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor, for this presentation, for this lecture. And Professor Priest Dachek receives a medal of commemoration with many thanks for participating in our Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a spiritual experience in front of us. I will like to invite you to a concert by Anna Kutkowska-Kas with a magnificent colorature soprano, and she will be accompanied by a grand piano. And please reconvene at 5:30 for the concert. Thank you very much.